Hello, welcome to Daz and Wargaming. You've joined us for another episode of Behind the Brush, the show where we get to talk to the wonderful hobby community and our favourite hobbyists on the interweb and get to know them a little bit better. And what an episode we've got for you today. We're joined by Geoff from the painting phase. How's it going,
Hello,
Geoff?
everyone. Good, thank you.
Good, good. Yeah, well, as good as we can be, eh? No, thank you for coming on this episode, and thank you to my co-host Gareth for helping me host it as always.
Glad, as usual.
Yeah, as usual. Just standard format. Really, we're going to run through some questions with Geoff and just. It's interesting to see what the answers are going to be. So let's run through it. All the people in the Twitch chat know. So anyone watching on YouTube, we record these live on Twitch. If you want to be a part of these, then do go over to Twitch and give us a follow, or better yet, a sub, and you can be a part of the whole process. Here we go. So I'll start off, Geoff. When and how did you get into the hobby?
I got into the hobby initially back in 1998. I was at a bit of a loose end one evening. I was in the death throes of my army career. I was up in Liverpool, and a friend I'd served with had left about a year previously, and I got invited round to a friend of his basement, and we played Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and I hated it with an absolute passion. And I thought, what a terrible way to spend an evening. And I was with him a few weeks later, and he had to go into Games Workshop. And when we went in, I seen a demo board out for 40k. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. These guys aren't moving like the other ones. They move blocks. They're in little teams. And this looks more like how I worked in the military. And I was thinking, hang on, why am I playing this? And we tried it in the shop, and I instantly fell in love with that. It was much more my thing. And so from probably late 98 was when I first got into the hobby. And I stayed with it until 2007. And then with the birth of my first child, I sold it all off. I was playing a French skirmish game for a while called Confrontation.
Right.
I left that behind and just fell out of the hobby, really. And it was when my eldest boy was at Scouts. And I don't know if you know, but Games Workshop basically now run the modelling and creating badge for Scouts.
Yeah.
And basically Games Workshop groomed my child. And he wanted to start a set. And obviously it was Dark Imperium. So it was Marines and Plague Marines.
Yeah.
And I got back into it that way with I had to be Death Guard, because every 12-year-old wants to be the Marines, and and I ended up with it like that, and I've stuck with it ever since, really.
Oh, what a great way to get back into it, though. But yeah, it's quite a common thing that we hear is people leaving at some point and then coming back. It always seems to be a gap. We'll drop it and come back. I don't know why, but it seems to be a trend. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice people are coming back and things like that and doing it. So that's awesome.
So next up, you are mostly known for your role as a co-host on the painting phase on YouTube. Could you tell us a bit more about the channel and when you joined it?
The channel came to be because I was an acquaintance of Pat's, in that Pat used to work in a climbing centre where my eldest boy was going, and Pat used to teach my son on and off. And when he wasn't teaching him, I would be stood around ordering coffees and got chatting to Pat, and we hit it off. And Pat then became a customer in my barber shop. And then when COVID struck, it basically killed Pat's new job of being a wedding videographer, stone dead.
Yeah.
And he seen this opportunity to join Games Workshop. And he said to me, "Oh, well, you're into all of that, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, yes." And he said, "If I if I phone you up one day, can you tell me about it? Because I'm going to go for a job interview. And I said, of course. And I said, have about an hour spare and a pad and a pen. And I just ran through the different types of games with him that were there. And, I just gave him a little bit of info.
Yeah.
And he had to do like a covering video instead of a covering letter with being a videographer. And I said, you want chainsaw noises, make a gag out of everything has a skull, and just gave him little hints and tips. And he produced a great video, which was obviously all him. It wasn't me. But me and Pat stayed in contact during that time. And within about 6 months, Pat realised it wasn't for him. He didn't really like working there, and COVID was starting to relax a little bit with regards to Evans. And we were just chatting, and Pat was like, I'm a bit sad to be leaving the job because I like the hobby and I like the miniatures and I like the whole style of it. And I'd hosted a movie podcast,
right,
purely as an audio one. And unfortunately, my pal from that, he went back to Scotland. And we tried doing it remotely, and it wasn't anywhere near as good as both being in the same room. And I said to Pat, I said, I know what you mean. I said, because I miss creating things as well. And we just then realised that maybe, me talking utter nonsense and his ability to film stuff might be a good way of, and that's how it launched. And so we started in April of 2022. And it's been going since then.
Wow. Yeah, no, nice one. Yeah, I'd say it's no secret I'm a massive fan of the channel anyway, and
very kind.
It was first on my list to bug Pat, obviously, to allow me to infiltrate the studio, which he was kind enough to let me do. I really enjoyed making that video, and I got some good advice from him and stuff like that. So it's one of the friendliest people that I've met, like, in the hobby is Pat. He's an absolute legend.
He has the patience of a saint.
Yeah.
He really does. He puts up with my inability to be able to do anything really well, and is generally just a really, really lovely person. He really is. Yeah,
sure. But yeah, in regards to the YouTube channel and things like that, I know that you're a co-host on that channel. Pat probably does a lot of like the technical side of things. Am I right in saying that, and things like that?
I wouldn't say a lot. I would say all.
Oh, okay, there we are. Okay, but I didn't want to jump to the conclusion. But
no, that would be the absolute right conclusion. Yeah. I turn up, talk nonsense, hold a paintbrush now and again, and then leave, and then and I just leave, and then hope that in a week's time something interesting will look good on YouTube.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, is there any advice that you could give anyone though that wanting to start your channel or start content creating or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I would say is you've got to love it. If you are only doing it because you feel like you have an interest in yourself being on the internet, or you feel like you just want to have your hand in it, I think that you've got to really love it, because I think if you are playing at it, where with the viewers are very, very savvy. It's a very, very savvy hobby, and I think people will tell if you're being a bit of a tourist for it. They know.
Yeah.
So I think you've really got to want to do it, and I think it's quite acceptable to start off just filming it on your phone. Some of my favourite channels are filmed on iPhones, and you don't have to worry about having all the gear. We were lucky the fact that with Pat's job, we did have all the gear. Because Pat has numerous cameras and lights and and so on.
Yeah.
And and we were able to expand quite quickly into us changing the gear to get exactly what we needed was a small step compared to some people starting at the beginning. So I think just getting yourself on there, setting yourself a regular day and time that you promise you're going to be releasing stuff, and loving it. I think would be my key to it.
Yeah. That's a great bit of advice, actually. Yeah.
So the next one has to be one of my favourite questions, and it is why I'm going second. What has been your favourite thing to paint so far, and what would you love to paint in the future?
Oh, it's I love when I seen this. It was such a tough question. I think my favourite thing to paint ever goes back to my first time into the hobby. When I was in the first time round, I was a Space Wolf player, and when I got in it, I got in just as the Codex was being released, and I got the original Logan Grimnar model of him running in Terminator armor, swinging the axe.
Right.
And I loved it, that miniature, and I put a lot of work into it. And the crown and glory with that miniature was that I'd done a wonderful job with it, and I'd given bright, thick red hair, very ginger looking, a real Celt. And then when it came to the face, it was still primed back black. I completely bottled it when it came to trying to give this. I thought I've done such a good job, but I know I'm going to kill it with the face, and faces and bases.
Yeah,
but lo and behold, at the time I needed to get this face done to finish this miniature off, a young man who you may have heard of now started at the Friar Lane Games Workshop store, and you may have heard of him. It was a chap called Darren Latham.
Oh yeah.
And Darren was this young. He was probably only about 18, 19 years old. And before he come, everyone was going, "We've got a guy starting here, and his armies are amazing." And they put them straight in the cabinet. They obviously were amazing. And he also was a Space Wolf player. And I said to Darren, "Can you paint the face on this? Because I'm going to kill this." And he did probably one of the most amazing faces that I've ever seen. And it took him about 15 minutes from start to finish. He just sat there and went, bah, 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 and he went, "There you go." And so it was my favourite miniature for the work I did. And it was my favourite miniature because it had the best face that's ever been painted on it in my army. And I wasn't responsible for it.
Nice.
And as for what I'd love to paint, it's funny because it's not I don't play it at all, but I'd really love to have a real crack at the Lizard Man army.
Oh right, yeah.
And I don't play Age of Sigmar. I have no real interest in playing Age of Sigmar, but that army, I'm hard pushed to name a single miniature in it that I would single out, because I just think it's an absolutely stunning range. It really, really is. I'd love to have a really colourful army of that done, but it's one of those things that I can't move into playing Age of Sigmar as well.
No.
I'm with the age of me, I can't get that many more rules in my brain.
Yeah. So yeah, not an army that's going to be added to the portfolio anytime soon.
No. I just go in and look at really nicely painted ones in Warhammer World from time to time, and I just covet them through the glass.
Yeah, that's fair. So with no Age of Sigmar stuff being added to the portfolio and whatnot.
No, I think.
Yeah, sorry, carry on. Sorry.
I think if I do go anywhere that way, and funny enough, it is quite similar in a way. I'm really circling the idea when they come out of having a combat patrol's worth of crews.
Yeah.
I think will probably be
That's cool.
My way of getting Lizard Man-ish without actually, both feet in the water.
Yeah. So how many armies do you actually own, and which is your favourite?
Well, this is a contentious issue. I own two, which is Death Guard Army, and I was very lucky a couple of years ago to win a fully painted Gene Stealer Cult Army.
Oh wow!
Which was through a charity raffle that was being held by a really wonderful Facebook group called Faith and Damnation, and you got a number of raffle tickets for however much you put in, and I donated some money. It was all going to Calm, the mental health charity, and managed to win the top prize, being this fully painted army. So I own two armies, and as much as they're not mine, I spend most of my time painting my son's Space Marine army, which takes up a majority of my time, especially because obviously they won't leave it alone. They just keep adding more to it.
So
as for my favourite, I'd have to say probably the Space Marine army, because it's quite Black Templar themed without being Black Templar. So it's a real labour of love of converting it and adding bits to it, and so that probably is the answer.
Oh, that's cool.
So, what is your favourite thing about the hobby?
My my favorite thing about the hobby, I think this is going to sound terrible, the mindfulness of painting. I think for me, I think the mindfulness of painting, and also the fact that my best friend is a chap called Tim, and I go and visit him normally every Tuesday, and I could just rock up with a bag with some Space Marines I've got to build or whatever it is, and and we'll just sit there and we'll just put things together, or we'll both paint, or one of us will paint. And sometimes it's 10-15 minutes and not a word is said, and just sitting there and getting on with it. And it's just a very nice space in your brain to just not think about anything else other than just trying to get paint on a miniature and make it look right.
Yeah,
that's probably my favorite bit of it, I would say.
Yeah, cool. On to sort of more the painting side of things. Do you have a favorite color and brand of paint? Now, they don't have to be the same. This is the thing that I try and separate. So, I know a lot of people have their favorite brand, but there's just like a single paint that's just their go-to no matter what. So
yeah, my favorite paint range is probably Games Workshop. Citadel, and it's not because by any stretch of the imagination do I think it's the best paint, because as you can imagine, being a YouTube channel, we've had all manner of paint sent to us, or we've between us we've all bought different variants and tried out different things. But I think because Games Workshop paint it's such a recognized range of paints, and as a system, if you look at how many people on the internet on YouTube paint, such a large percentage of them, if they're doing tutorials, are still painting in Games Workshop colours. Yeah. Even people like Richard Gray, who I adore his painting ability, and he's right up there. But if you watch him, he still works a lot of the time in Citadel.
Yeah.
So that would probably be my favourite paint range, just for the convenience of if we treat paint as like it being a language.
Yes.
The language of it. It's the easiest to work with, I think. But that would probably be the answer to that. And as for the colour, Warpstone Green.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because it adapts really well in a couple of different directions at the same time.
Yeah.
It adapts really well. It adapts really well into bringing it in with Caliban, and it works really well when you push it through with Moot and so on. And it's just a bit of an all-round green for me that I like. Yeah. That's probably my most used colour, I would say.
Yeah, I have to agree. I paint a lot of stuff green, and it's usually a sickly green, and that's usually my mid-tone. Yeah. So I have to agree. That's done. Yeah.
Beyond stealing another company's catchphrase, any advice for anyone wanting to get into the hobby?
What's my advice to get into the hobby? I would say, and I know this is probably, everybody says this, but I think it is probably the best bit of truth, is that the best getting into the hobby is you've got to go into whatever shop or whatever range online it is and find the thing that you most fall in love with and buy that. Because there's nothing worse. There is nothing worse than painting something that is a job. Because we all do jobs. We all do jobs all day long. You paint then shouldn't, unless it is your job if you're a commission painter. But painting shouldn't be a job. It goes back to the mindfulness. If you are sitting there pushing paint on something and it feels like the equivalent of putting paper in a filing cabinet, it's not the right thing to paint. So fall in love with something and paint that, and I'm the worst. It's the worst piece of advice because none of us do it, but paint that, finish that before you buy anything else.
Everybody watching this now has just laughed out loud.
Yeah, of course we are. And I feel like an absolute fraud saying it.
Yeah, I feel attacked.
Yeah, but I don't apply that to myself at all. But I think it's the best thing to do.
Yeah, it's definitely the best thing.
It's good advice for people.
Yeah, it's good advice. Yeah, you know what I mean.
If anyone's managed to do that, then do let us know. We want
all one of you.
We want to get you on the stream.
It's like a ticker tape parade when they come online.
Yeah, it's like, without even knowing you, you're already one of my hobby heroes. Like, yeah, that's that. I think that's fair enough. Speaking of hobby heroes,
yes.
do you have any hobby heroes or someone that particularly inspires you? I think you've mentioned one or two people.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, I think I do actually. And as much as I love Richard Gray, he's not a hobby hero because I can't emulate him.
Right.
And I've said this to Richard. I watch his stuff and I adore it, but he's already painting with a set of skills in his instructional. When he's been instructional, he's already painting with a set of skills that I don't possess. So I never watch Richard Gray coming away thinking I'll learn something. I just watch Richard Gray for the pure beauty of seeing something start off primed and become this amazing thing at the end. If I had to say hobby heroes, it's probably, really speaking, it's three, and one of these is going to sound really sickly sweet, so I apologise. I love Jez Goodwin. I just think he really just brought so much to the hobby for me, and just the pure understanding of how he started to move into working with plastics when Games Workshop that went that way, and seeing his sketchbook that he released years ago and how close his vision and plastic were. And I know Games Workshop then couldn't help but dilute things down because of cost and ability to sculpt things into whatnot, but yeah, it is how close his vision and what he wanted to make were, I think, was great. When it comes to people on the channel, I'm a massive fan of Henry Steele,
right,
from Cult of Paint. I think Henry is he's the next level down from Richard Gray for me. He works amazingly well, but he does things where you do feel like you can learn something. I have a lot of time for Richard. And then the other one I'll say, and it sounds really bad, is Pat. Pat is one of my hobby heroes because Pat has gone from not being able to paint very well to now putting out two really amazingly good videos about using an airbrush. And the leaps forward between video 1 and video 2 is just astonishing at how good he's been. And the commitment that he's putting into it and learning so rapidly that, I have to say he's a hobby hero for me.
That's nice of you to say that. Look, everybody's going to get a bit emotional at that, I think.
But no, it is. It's just amazing to see. It's just amazing to see how well he's working. It really is.
So, final one of the formal questions.
Okay.
For the YouTube part of it, what are your aspirations for the future, and what can people expect to see from you in the painting phase moving forward?
Aspirations for the future is it's probably going to come up in some capacity or another. We recently moved from being 3, being Pat, myself, and Peachy, to being 2, and the channel has took a little bit of a kicking for that. People seemed quite cross that he'd gone and was very much levelled at us, and we had messages on YouTube of people saying no Peachy, no watching, and all of this and whatnot. So our aim is to carry on and do our best to try and move on from that and keep the channel building. And also the fact, I think, is Peachy did what Peachy did well, and Peachy's a fantastic paint and shooter, and we can't emulate that. So, but I think what we want to do is that when we put paint on miniatures, it'll be a slightly different way of looking at it. It'll be not about us teaching you to paint. It'll be about taking you on journeys of how we discover things that we're not good at, and how we fix problems, and how we work out how to paint something we don't know where to start. So it'll be more us finding out how things work, and hope, and Pat's just already done this. He did one airbrush video that was good, and the first 2 Terminators he painted, he absolutely destroyed. The third one was much better, and then the next video, there he was having a go at Deathwing and doing a really good job of it. And I think that's what we want to do. Is I think YouTube has a lot of experts on it.
Yeah, true.
And I think sometimes they forget that the person watching it might not have any knowledge of how to even get started.
Yeah.
And I think we're not trying to make videos for beginners, but we're trying to make videos that at the core of them is a problem. Yeah. And we're trying to figure out how to get around that problem and how to adapt. And or things like we'll do things adjacent to, we'll do things like other people are doing at the time, especially if there's new codex releases, but we want to be a bit adjacent to it and figure out a different angle on it, you know. So that's the aim really, is just take people on little journeys with us as we figure stuff out.
Well, it sounds exciting, you know. It's like a new chapter and stuff,
so.
And I'm excited to go on the journey with you guys. And
thank you very much.
Keep watching it and enjoying it. Hopefully, you keep the interviews and stuff going, because I've always really enjoyed those.
We've got an interview in the bag with a lovely American chap called Jason, who goes on Instagram under the name of Bjorn.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sculptor, but he also teaches seminars where he teaches people how to adapt their miniatures. He's done. I've never seen anybody sculpt hair and beards quite as well as he does. He's a phenomenal. And he was such a lovely guy. Who's such a really laid back vibe to him. That show will probably be out soon.
Yeah.
And then the one that I'm really pleased about, because I've watched them for quite a while, and they have one of the most quirky and interesting shows on YouTube for me, is they've agreed to come on. We've got Snipe and Wib.
Oh yeah.
Are coming on probably, hopefully either just before we go to Adepticon or not long after we come back. I love their show that they just dig out really old Coldexes, and they've got such an amazingly clever and dry sense of humour. So I'm really looking forward to having them on. And further down the line, funnily enough, I mentioned them already. Andy Wardle and Henry Steele from Cult of Paint are probably going to come on the show quite soon. Yeah, hopefully we'll be speaking to Andy off the back of him winning a Golden Demon and a Slayer Sword in Adepticon. But fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for him.
So what I will do is I'll mention right now, while I remember, is for those watching on YouTube, in the description I'm going to put links to the painting phase, all that stuff, all the different stuff to yourself, and links to like the video that I did infiltrate in the studio and stuff. If anyone wants to watch my interview with Pat, and if you want to play a little game as well, go and watch all the paint face videos and see how many times the Daz Maul mug pops up.
Yeah, it gets quite a good outing, the Daz Maul mug.
It does. I keep spotting it. Like, there it is.
You know, you know when you have one of them moments in your brain and then you forget later on. When I was in the studio when I was recording on Tuesday, I thought to myself, I'm going to grab the mug and I'll take it home and I'll drink tea out of it. And unfortunately, I forgot. So I'm doing a Byron from Art of Soap instead.
I'll wrap. It's fine.
Yeah, so I said, I'll grab that. I was making a cup of tea and I seen it in the sink and I thought, I'll grab that, and it went out my head.
Never mind.
I do apologise.
It's all right. It's all right.
I should have been repping it tonight, but
never mind.
Me dementia got in the way.
It's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. So yeah, for those on YouTube, that is the end of this episode of Behind the Brush. Like I've said, we're going to carry on and do a bit more hobby chatter and stuff on Twitch. So if you're watching on YouTube and want to be a part of these recordings, then do head over to Twitch and give us a follow so you're notified when we go live, all that jazz. Just want to say a massive thank you to Geoff for coming and joining us and doing this. It's much appreciated.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, honestly, our pleasure. And a thank you to my co-host, Mr. Gareth, or Dante Paints, for doing what he does best.
Is this ever a chore?
To do what he does best, drink and paint while interviewing.
You've got to admire the multi-ability.
You're doing very well. Right, so for those of you on YouTube, stay safe and happy hobby all. Bye-bye.